Welcome, everyone, to Magical Aspirations, a podcast for magical people where we aspire to gather all of the knowledge that magic has to offer. It's a place to illuminate and demystify all things magical. Welcome, magical people, to Magical Aspirations, a podcast for magical people. Today, we are really excited to chat about the moon and all of its magic. Join with me today, we have Annalisa.
Hello.
And Adreyauna.
Hey.
And we are really excited to talk about this juicy topic with the moon. We just had the full moon that passed, and it had a lot of amazing magic and messages to share with us. So we want to share our feelings about the moon with you. To me, the moon is really important because it helps us tap into our emotions and our intuition. How do you ladies feel about the moon?
It's complicated, but in the best way. I think that I try so hard to avoid how in tune with the moon I actually am, but when it's waxing, I'm in the flow. When it's waning, I'm in the flow. So like the moon is such a special celestial being for me.
That is 100% the truth. I'm someone who I tend to forget about things like the moon phases and things like that, but it never ceases to amaze me that even without paying attention to it, you can totally still feel the effects. So I looked up what today's moon phase is today. We are actually in the waning gibbous phase. And so I think that's really non-coincidental, as it always is. It's just straight up magic. One of the things that we focus on during the waning gibbous moon is reflection. And that's exactly what we're doing today, is reflecting on the magic of the moon.
Yes, I love that. And like I said, we just had the full moon that just passed. And I was really blessed to lead a full moon circle at Queenly Conjure on Wednesday. We just opened it up, a public event, and asked people to come and participate and to bring a musical instrument so we could make music as sounds and movements to help raise energy under the Capricorn full moon. What does Capricorn mean to y'all?
All the things. So I particularly love Capricorns. Maybe it's an Aries thing. Maybe it's just the Capricorns that I've known in my life. But I think like Capricorn is such a special and almost hard to truly define type of sign. So in the tarot, the Capricorn is depicted by the devil card. And so, most folks see the devil and they're like, oh, bad, scary, no. But actually the devil is something that reminds you of like, hey, here's where there's some issues, or here's some things that are taboo, and how do you respond to those things? What comes up for you? How are you going to challenge your mindset? And I think that Capricorn does a really great job of showing us our foundation, showing us our core, and then challenging us to determine whether this is something we want to continue with or not. And then Capricorn isn't just going to talk about it, they're going to walk about it. And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why I love Capricorn so freaking much. But then also on the, I guess, unhealed, unaligned side of Capricorn, it can be very addictive. It can be very depressive, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And sometimes they will go into the deep end. I know that people like to say that Scorpios are, go in the deep end, but I feel like Capricorns really have darkness within them, and I think it's beautiful when they are able to use it in the best way possible. But sometimes Capricorn energy can get lost in that. So that Capricorn is a lot.
Mhm.
Ooh-wee, girl. I appreciate that take on that so much because I've said it before on here. I'm an Aries sun. I've done a bunch more delving into my chart lately, and I actually have a ton of fucking Capricorn in it, which I never knew.
Mm.
And boy, does that clarify a lot about my personality.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've got a couple of Capricorn placements too, and I'm like, okay, I see you, but also,
Mhm.
Yeah,
mm-mm.
and what a good analogy for the whole phasing of the moon, that how it goes from, we just hit the full moon, which is commonly used for gratitude, but I also appreciate the full moon because it obviously shines light on the things that we want to see and we want to be grateful for. But I find that the full moon has a not nasty habit, but we'll just say a consistency of shining light on things that I maybe wish it wouldn't.
Mm,
Yep.
mhm.
Totally. Funny that you say that. I was pulling from my Urban Crow Oracle right before we went on, and of course, the card that I pull is the Night card, and it has a
Mm.
picture of a full moon and a bunch of crows. They are on branches and it's snowing, so they're like looking down. They look like they're very cold. But in the description, it says, "It is here that all the chatter, all the noise, the action of the day subsides and quiet returns. Night creates a
Mm.
space to contemplate the day as a whole. What event had the most significant impact and will help you to grow? Are there events
Mm.
such as petty squabbles that serve you little and can be released into the dark?"
Mm.
So that was really a good, kind of aha for me as us getting ready to talk about the moon. Like you were saying, the full moon really illuminates things that we are feeling and in our emotions.
Mhm.
And I know that me personally, I really like to just pretend that I'm happy all the time.
Ugh, isn't that the truth? It's so easy to do that.
So on the full moon, it really makes me see, like, how are you really feeling? Like,
Mm.
deal with your fucking emotions. Don't just say,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, it's fine." I
Mm.
literally had an incident this week where at work, the internet's down at work, the phones aren't working, our workflow's totally disturbed. Just felt like complete chaos going on. And
Mm.
I'm just kind of trucking along. And, I realized towards the end of the day that I felt like the meme of that dog sitting inside of the burning building. And he says, "It's fine.
It's fine.
Yep.
Everything's fine. Isn't
Everything is
that?
All's well.
fine."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had, so for this particular full moon, we had family in town, and it
Mm.
was their first time like coming to visit us, and so we were all excited, and they were staying in our house, so it was just like a lot of energy. So I feel like that was a really wonderful distraction from
Yeah.
what was like going on, because like prior to them getting here, I was like very stressed out. I'm in like trying to do too many things at one time,
Mm.
and once they left, it just like hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was out, down for the count, could not get out of bed, could not even conjure up a like coherent email to just say like, I cannot do this right now. We'll get back to you next week. Like I was just done for, but
Out of office reply.
that part, that right there. But I totally feel that. It was just ugh.
Yeah, and it like you said about Capricorn, like looking at your foundation, we really incorporated that into the ritual on Wednesday night. Lori Vellatini, that y'all have spoken with, of Rowan Grove Energy Healing,
Mm.
she helped us with the ritual, and she went down to the river and asked to collect the rocks, asked them if they wanted to participate in our ritual, and then gathered them and brought them. And during the ritual, what we did is we were looking at our foundation. And are there things in the foundation of who you are and how you feel and what you want to be that need altered or need changed? And how can we strengthen that foundation? And
Mm.
so we put our intentions into the rocks during the ritual. We placed them in a bowl, and then she poured moon water over it that she had collected from the Pisces full moon at the beginning of the year, and then we let it charge under the full moon. And so it was, obviously symbolic of, looking at our foundation and trying to solidify those things in our lives, but using the water energy to do that. And we're at the very tail end of Cancer season.
Mhm.
And so I felt like that we were really calling on that water energy to help us with our foundation. It's helping us to see where are those cracks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Cancer will do that. Cancer energy will do that. And river energy will do that too.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
nothing like water to show you where there's a freaking slip, tiniest crack in your foundation. And next thing you know, your whole ceiling's coming in, you know?
Mhm.
But I always, I guess, in the past saw that kind of as I don't know, like a more of a negative thing.
Mm,
And I am learning more in my spiritual practice and my daily life of how to let that be a positive aspect.
mm,
Yes.
What are my emotions, and how can I process them and deal with them?
mm.
I think that that's a good oh, I just love that so terribly much. It one of the things that as we were starting to do research or talking about doing this topic, right? We think about the moon as a whole, and we're all a bunch of big old nerds here. And so the moon takes 28 days to orbit the Earth. The lunar cycle is 29.5 days. And that
Mhm,
extra day and a half is important. So I just want to run through what I practice as far as the individual moon phases go. So the new moon is for new beginnings. The waxing crescent is where you plan and prepare. The first quarter, when the moon is coming into full, is where you start to take action. The waxing gibbous, refining and honing your plans. The full moon, giving gratitude. The waning gibbous, today, reflection. The last quarter, as the moon is starting to go back to dark, is letting go. The waning crescent is surrendering. And an important phase that I don't think a lot of people talk about is the dark moon phase. And so there is this little
mm.
bit of time in between the waning crescent and while the moon is still dark at the new phase, there's the dark moon. Some people call that void, of course, or a bunch of people have different terms for it. But you honor the end of that phase. And so every 29.5 days, we're given a chance to look at the things we don't want to look at, change them, give gratitude for them, and like continually shed all of that shit. And that has been a potent message for me this big moon phase. What are y'all
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
I
Mm.
really like that. I really think it kind of goes back to learning to be okay in the
Mhm.
dark.
Yes.
I think we talked about
Mm.
this on our light and dark episode where the dark can
Mhm.
seem scary to us, because we can't see what's going on around us. We don't know what we're feeling and things like that. Well, sometimes the best thing that we can do is sit down and shut the fuck up.
Mm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's
Absolutely.
that void of course moon to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like honoring the end, I'm someone who once I recognize that like I don't like something and I want to change it, I either go into like a self-sabotage downward spiral or like I just never look at that thing again. And I don't really think that I'm realizing that neither of those is really the healthiest option.
Mm.
I think there's something to be said just like how we grieve people, like grieving the phases of our lives for ourselves. Like I am getting to a point where I am not the person that I once was, and I think
Yeah.
I've just been trying to, like, shove that back and not look at it, and I think I'm realizing that I might need to have just, like, a small nothing big or crazy, but, like, acknowledge that a phase has ended and sit there for a second before rushing to start the next phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that was something that I have really tried to hone into. One of my older mentors, she would call that the hallway moment between the two doors.
Oh, I love
And
that.
yeah, and it really stuck with me. And it's like that hallway moment to where like you are packing up all your ish from that old door. You got it sitting, taking inventory, and then you're cleaning it off, preparing it for, walking through that new door, and how you have to kind of like take a minute, a breath, a moment to appreciate that. I did it. I did it. And I think it goes into like how we are addicts to what is it, dopamine, and we just like want it consistently all the time. So it makes sense why we would want to like continue to like keep going. But like we have to go to sleep at night. We have to have a moment to rest, and that should be said for the things that we do in our lives as well. And it, even now saying that out loud, it's making me think about how like something that I've been learning in business has been, there is not always going to be consistency in like really great months. And I don't need to shit on myself for having like a low month, or just like a so month, or even a really fucking sucky month. Like it doesn't take away from my worth. It just is what it is. And
Yes.
I love that, but then it's like telling myself that and embodying that it's okay for things to be slow and to rest and to pause is a whole different story. So yeah.
I think that that's definitely a lesson that the moon shares with us, though, is that things do go through cycles. There will be highs and there will be lows and there will be in betweens and there will be meh moments. And that just because it's like that right now doesn't mean that it's going to be like that forever, first off. And second off, that it's not inherently bad when those lows do happen. There is some kind of a lesson from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it goes into like, it makes me think about what is it, the universal law of movement and rhythm, and everything swings back and forth, and how there's no sense in us trying to go and prove ourselves against like this big universal law. Like, who do we think we are? Like, please sit down, humble yourself,
Right.
and just let things rock, let things ride.
Becky, you said you had some fun facts about the earthlings and the moon, and I think that that's such a good jumping off point.
I was just getting ready to say that. You read my mind. So like Annalisa said, we are a bunch of nerds here. So whenever I knew that we were going to talk about the moon, I wanted to do some research about the moon itself. So a fun fact is that our moon, the Earth's moon, is a quarter of the size of the Earth, 1/4, and that is bigger than most planets' moons. So it's a really big moon, and this causes it to have the gravitational pull, which causes the shifting in the tides in the oceans, the lakes, the atmosphere, and the Earth's crust. I thought that that was really cool because you would think about the tides in the ocean, but with it discussing the smaller bodies of water like the lakes, and it having a gravitational pull, there's tides in the atmosphere and the Earth's crust. That made me start thinking, is there a tidal shift within our bodies? The water that's within us? And maybe that's why the moon has such an impact on living beings that are here on the earth. So the moon slows the Earth's rotation. It's called tidal braking. And the moon actually picks up the energy that's lost from the Earth slowing down its movement. This is actually increasing the distance that the moon is from the Earth. It's getting further and further away from the Earth. And so I'm curious, as that's happening, over time, is that going to play a different role on the gravitation and the tides here on Earth?
I would have to say yes. I'm no
Mm,
scientist, but
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then, like, if the moon is further and further away, how, well, like, what's going to be the domino effect of that is really,
Right.
ooh, ooh.
Because of this last cool fact, this is what really has me thinking. So the moon moderates the degree of wobble in the Earth's axial tilt.
Hmm.
The moon is actually what controls how the Earth is tilted, what angle it is. And so this actually led to the Earth having a relatively stable climate, which is the key to making the Earth a
Mm.
livable planet. Because
Mm.
we had a consistent climate for billions of years, it allowed the Earth to support all of the beings that it does.
Isn't
Okay.
that fascinating?
Right? Right? So if it wasn't for the moon, none of us would fucking be here on Earth.
You're
Right,
welcome.
right.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
So
Well, and
thank
like
you.
that, yeah, thank you, Moon.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That makes me think of how the muggles of the world, right?
Mm,
How do they not how do they not know? You know, I as Becky and I have said, we've worked in animal medicine for years and years and years and years now. And you talk to any people, anyone in the vet field, anyone in the medical field, and everyone, when shit starts going haywire, the first question they ask is,
is
"Oh
it
my
a
god, is it
full
a full
moon?
moon?"
Yes.
And like people say it sarcastically, but I'm like, "Yes, it is," or
Actually.
like it's coming, or it
Actually, it's
just happened.
tomorrow.
Exactly. It always, almost every month, ends up happening like that. And like, muggles, are you just really so? Are you just not like? How can you not feel it? Can you not see it? Like it just
Mm,
makes me think.
So, for
mm,
hundreds of years, they have used the term lunacy to
Mm,
describe intermittent insanity attributed to the changes within the moon. So,
mm,
in the 1700s is when the term was coined, and they used it to talk about psychiatric disorders like epilepsy as well.
interesting.
And psychiatric disorders that they would see increases in people's erratic behavior based around the phases of the moon as they were changing. And,
Mm,
it's
mm,
always like, I don't know the word to use. I was gonna say funny, but it's, looking back, you're like, "Oh, that's so antiquated." I can't believe people thought that they were crazy because of the moon or,
right.
epileptic. But think about within your body how you respond to the moon. If you had a neurological disorder, maybe the moon phases would cause you to have more
mm,
seizures, or if
Yeah.
you had a disorder like bipolar, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
as the moon phases were changing, your mood stability would change.
mm.
Yeah. That is something to think about. And I was
Is
just
something to
telling
think about.
Annalisa like how important it is for me to just like um take record of how different moons
Mm.
affect me so that I can just like have some sort of idea instead of being surprised when it pops up. But that really also makes me think about how during the winter's time, how people are, experiencing the winter blues, seasonal affect effects.
Mm,
Yeah, that word sad.
Mhm.
I could not say that. And how the moon intensifies or numbs or makes it better during that time. Like I wonder, do during full moons, are they more are they lighter because there's more light in the sky, or does it make it worse?
mm.
I don't this is a wormhole.
God, for real.
I knew it would be.
I knew it, yeah.
So, something else really cool that I wrote down, and it's something that I use actually in my magical practices. For thousands of years, lunar calendars were used for agriculture purposes.
Mhm.
So ancient
Mhm.
calendars, they would plan the planting and harvesting of their crops based on the moon cycles.
Mhm.
Also, fishermen would plan when they were going to catch different types of fish based on the moon phases. So my
Mhm.
family actually plans a big fishing trip every spring to go to try to catch blue marlin. And there are varying theories about whether you should go on the full moon or whenever the moon is dark. The thought is when the moon is full, the marlin can see everything in the water. And so they spend all night catching fish themselves. They're out eating all night. And so then they're full and it's harder to catch them. With your bait, they're not really that interested because they're full. But if you go fishing for them in a time when the moon is dark and they can't see the fish in the water, then they're likely to be more hungry and that you could actually catch them.
That's really fucking cool.
So those are the theories. We have yet to catch the blue marlin. But we will see one day.
What phase of the moon have y'all gone fishing on?
Around the full moon. So it was like right before the full moon the last time, and the time before that it was like right after the full moon. So we're gonna take more look into it for this next trip. We go May every year. So
interesting. Becky, you should write a children's book about that. I'm having this I'm closing my eyes and seeing this like animated like Moby Dick type blue marlin, like you're never gonna catch me until like the small child figures out the phases of the moon trick. Ooh, I might take that. I might write a book about that.
There you go. And so, adding that in, thinking about the agricultural and, fishing components to how the moon affects those types of things. Actually, whenever I was a baby witch and a new practitioner, I didn't have access to the witches' planners from Llewellyn and things like that. And I actually would pick up every year the Farmer's Almanac from the Tractor Supply. Because you would have all of that information regarding the moon phases, when to plant and when to harvest. And so as a baby witch, it was great information for me to know, like, this is when you cut your herbs to use for your spell. This is when you plant the new thing. This is when you plant your intentions. So relying on the Farmer's Almanac was actually a really helpful tool for me in my magical practices over the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the idea of using what you have, because I do think, myself included, some of the witches of today were just so spoiled with information. It's so right at our fingertips. That, because like I'm looking at the information that I have, and like I have this cute little watercolor-esque type graphic about the moon phases and the days of the week that like I got off of Etsy, and like it's precious. But like I just applaud that the witches of yesteryear who really had to work with what they only had.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful.
And it literally goes back to being connected with the earth and nature, being connected to the universe. So however you can get that information, there's no wrong way.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I went over the brief moon phases that I kind of honor, or at least try to. I tend to not succeed very often, just truthfully. Do you guys have any different takes on the phases of the moon and what you use them for?
I don't break down the phases as minuscule as that. It's really just like new, waxing, full, waning for me. And new moons are more new moons are quiet for me. I don't really like to share too much about like what I'm going to be doing for a new moon, because of course it's like the baby and you're planting it, you're don't want to spoil your seeds kind of thing. And then like waning, or not waning, but waxing is very active. I'm really excited, and I try to put like a lot of positive and speaking life into whatever it is that's I'm focusing on. And of course for full moons, I think it depends on the type of energy will determine how I'm going to respond for that particular full moon. So some full moons, like for this one, I wiped out, did not do a a damn thing. I was tired, exhausted. However, for the last full moon, I was really excited, and I was doing some ancestor work and all of that. So like it was a really great time, but different full moons just like vibe with me on different frequencies. And then for waning, but waning is my time. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I was born during a waning moon. And so a waning gibbous moon actually. And so that release and letting go, burning things up, cleansing things out, banishing protection, that's where my, I guess, superpower is. I think all witches have like different superpowers, but I think that's where mine comes from. And so like that's my time, and I love to be in that like cleanup mode. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
That is so fascinating. I had never thought to look up what phase I was born on, and I just Googled it real quick. I was born in the waxing gibbous phase,
Mm.
and that, oh man, that is the same area that I have to say too feel the most empowered. Fascinating.
Oh,
Juicy.
I never thought about doing that either, so I'm definitely going to look into that. And I would echo what Adriana said about my feelings about the moon phases really are dependent on, what else is going on astrologically. So, like the Capricorn full moon, it felt a lot different than the Pisces full moon and the Aries full moon and things like that. It really does feel different for me. And sometimes the full moon, I'm like, go, go, go. I have all of these things that I want to get done, and magically, that I'm going here doing this. And sometimes it just wipes me the fuck out. It tells me that I need to sit the fuck down. So I agree that it really does depend on, what else is going on.
Yeah, for sure. And as we've just been having this conversation too, I mentioned earlier that I recently found out that I actually have a lot of Capricorn in my chart. Um and boy, this full moon, like when I tell you it came in, kicked the fucking door down and was like, "We're shining light on all of your shit." And like I was not prepared because I truthfully didn't give it much thought because it's a Capricorn full moon and that doesn't have much to do with me because I'm an Aries, but like
Mhm.
do you guys find that y'all are more or less inflamed when the moons tend to fall in your signs?
Yeah, the
Mhm.
Sag moons are really, they're fun for me, I guess. I
We
feel very
like that. Magic is
energized.
fun.
I feel energized during Sag moons, which is my natal moon. And any fire sign moon, I'm gonna be feeling a lot more active. Earth moons will have me on my ass.
Mhm.
Water moons tend to they fluctuate because I have a lot of water in my chart, but for the most part, water moons are going to be very intuitive. Like I am pen to paper, writing stuff down, having dreams, having revelations, connecting dots that maybe I didn't connect before. So I have to really be intentional around my quiet time for water moons. And then air
Mm.
moons, just they're hit or miss. They're hit or miss. It just depends.
Mhm. That's very
uh,
typical air.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what about y'all? Reverend Raven, what about
Yeah.
you?
So I was just looking up again. I wrote down, kind of where all of my placements are so I could kind of look at it to reflect on the question here. And I am so much fire. So much fire. I'm sitting over here, Leo sun, Aries moon, Mercury in Leo,
Mm.
and a Taurus rising.
Bless you. Bless that
Yeah,
Taurus rising.
right.
Bless, girl, bless.
I'm trying to stay grounded over here.
I really am.
My Mars is in Cancer and my Venus
Mm.
is in Virgo.
Mm.
Interesting.
So it's
Mm.
Interesting.
It kind of is all over the place as far as how I respond to which moons. Um,
Mhm.
but like I said, it definitely I know that this was a super moon, this last moon as well, which means
Yeah.
is a little bit brighter, a little bit closer to us. So I don't know if that's why I was just feeling so wiped, kind of like leading up to it and afterwards. I was planning my first full moon ritual as Reverend Raven.
Mm,
But I was getting this message that I wasn't really supposed to be like planning the nitty gritty with it. I was supposed to let
mm,
it flow. And
Mhm.
instead of getting bogged down in the details, what my role was supposed to be was to be that conduit and open up the space and let
mm,
people feel what they needed to feel.
Mm. Mm.
So they
mm,
so they could identify those cracks in their foundation, so they could learn how to love themselves and things like that.
mm.
So my role in that was to be the one just to open the space and let things flow.
Yeah. That's like the perfect marriage between Cancer and Capricorn energy.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Mm,
mhm,
mm,
mhm.
it's like, Cancer brings up mommy issues and Capricorn brings up daddy issues. So it's like very
Mm,
parental, very guardian like. And I
mm.
love how you said, I wasn't there to just tell them. I was there to guide and support.
Mhm.
Yes, and it's just
Yeah.
such a for you, Becky, that's such a testament of what a love warrior you are, because that's what you do. That's what you do. You just facilitate for other people too. You've been that for me for as long as we've been friends. I love you.
Mm.
Aw, I love
Thank
you.
you. What sign did you say your moon was in again?
Aries.
Aries, that's right. Adri, what about you?
Sagittarius.
Libra over here too in the moon side. And we're going to have an episode about the whole astrology breakdown because so many people don't realize all of the things that go into who you are. Um, Here, let me see. I got a quick little for the listeners. At least for what okay, here's what your moon sign is because a lot of people don't realize that there's something other than the sun sign. The moon rules emotions, moods, and feelings. This is likely the sign you most think of yourself as, since it reflects as your personality when you're alone or deeply comfortable. For me, my moon is in Libra, meaning that my emotional self is balanced, harmonious. I see both sides of every situation, extremely indecisive, relationship oriented, and desperate to please. I can be a little self obsessed, but I tend to hide my feelings and needs. That is 100% accurate. That is 100% accurate.
Damn.
Just
Yeah.
to put
You're
myself
like,
on blast for you listeners.
wow, way to call me out here.
Yeah,
I
isn't that whew.
I can guess what Aries moon's about, but is that handy there?
Let me una momento por favor.
So my
Find
best friend
it.
is an Aries moon, so I
I know that I am very passionate about my feelings.
That's not a
Mhm.
word I would describe you as, Rev. Okay, here we go. Here we go. If your moon sign is in Aries, the planet Mars rules over your emotional makeup. This is where your red hot, bold, and sometimes hot-tempered personality comes from. You live in the moment, thrive on being spontaneous, and crave a life of adventure.
No way.
Not you, Becky.
Never.
Not you, Becky.
But I also think it's funny actually as I'm looking at what I wrote down on my placements of what you said about the Aries moon and that it's ruled by Mars. So my Mars is in Cancer though.
So it's
So
almost
it
like a
it
confliction.
Fascinating.
yeah, and
Mhm.
it like bounces though back to that water, like fire
Yeah.
and water and fire and water.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, and I think this is a thought that I was starting to have last night that I would like to have an episode about like the divine feminine, divine masculine type of thing. I recently had a situation where a masculine energy that I am used to dealing with is very Mars Aries driven. Like exactly what you think of when you think of Aries, the god of war. He's hot-tempered, he's short-tempered, he runs in, it's all yelling and fire and action and all of this shit. And recently I've had the great pleasure, truthfully, to come in contact with someone who I feel like they're a male person, but it's so not like that. And like Becky, you are that also, in the sense of that, like, I have never heard you speak in anger or frustration or like yelling or short-temperedness. You always come from this deep place of understanding, and like your passion thrives on wanting to speak for the ones who are unheard and things like that. Like, it's just been an interesting, I don't know if I'm making sense. Are y'all, I'm losing my words now, but
Mm. Yeah, it made sense to me for sure.
okay, good. I'm glad. Okay, good. I'm glad. The point I think I was trying to get across was that, so like, you're talking about the Aries and the Cancer, and
Yeah.
Becky, you're a good tempering of hot passion, but like not in the, I guess, typically described like bad masculine way, if that makes sense.
Burn them down kind of way.
Yes. Like,
Yeah.
I stand for justice, and so my actions reflect that. And so actually that just triggered something that I was thinking about, Annalisa, what you're talking about, like masculine and feminine energies. I wrote down names of different deities, and many of the deities associated with the moon are feminine type entities. There are a few that are masculine, but kind of going through them, there are some like Artemis and Diana who are quote unquote female. They are very masculine, heavy energies. They're hunters, they're warriors, they're protectors. And I think that the moon brings us big lessons of that duality, where it's not just one or the other. Like when we were talking with Kier, living in both places at once last week, having that masculine and feminine energy within each of us, that we aren't just one or the other. I think the moon reminds us of that message, that we can have that duality. And when you look at the mythology, like across a lot of different cultures, the moon and the sun are typically paired together. Like the moon is one, a brother, and then the sun's a sister, as in Norse mythology, or vice versa. You have the female entity is the moon, and the male entity is the sun. So they're related. They're not separate from one another. And like I was talking about with the facts about the moon and how it's related to the earth, the moon is not a separate thing. It's not a separate energy.
And that duality is the word that I was very much looking for. And I think that that's exactly what the moon teaches us, all phases of dark, light, and in between.
I'm
just sucking that in for a minute. I love that, you guys.
Yeah.
What a good reflection. I have so much that I'm going to go personally reflect on after this conversation, for sure.
Yes, definitely. And I'm going to carry these reflections with me whenever I leave. I am going to an event that's called Can't Stop Love, and we are going to be performing marriage celebrations for LGBTQ plus couples who are in need of the services. So I'm really excited to be able to participate in this event, to bestow people rights that they deserve within our community. And there's also going to be people on hand helping draft wills and power of attorneys and things like that. So I'm really grateful to be able to be a servant of my community. And I'm going to keep the messages of the moon close to my heart there.
Yes.
That's so beautiful, Becky. Oh my god. Oh, like I think I'm gonna have to go cry now. That
Feel the feels, be in the feels.
That's right.
Yes.
Let the moon. Don't run away from the emotions.
Do not.
Right.
Do not.
Right.
Oh, you guys.
This was juicy.
I
Yes.
know. I know. Is that all the moon's got for us today?
I think so. I think that we're
think
supposed
so.
to sit down and reflect on these messages that we all shared together today.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And then as we move into the next phase, which is just that last quarter moon of letting go, I think we've really touched on a lot of things that I know for sure I would like to. Let's see, the last quarter moon will be on the 20th, the day after we release this episode. So I really challenge everyone to reflect on what they would like to release as the moon starts to go dark.
Yes,
Yes.
and clean out your wallets, clean
Yes.
out your backpacks and purses, and stretch your hips because a lot can get trapped in your hips, especially emotionally wise, as we are in Cancer season, which does roll the hips. So move your booty, okay? Move your booty.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Well, thank you both so much for sharing in this wonderful conversation about the moon and all of its glory and power and how it helps us to see those things within ourselves.
Ugh, my pleasure as always.
Absolutely.
As we've said many times, these conversations tend to be much more for us, and we just happen to release them to the world. But we hope that you guys feel right there along with us.
Yes. And please send us any feedback that you have about this
Yeah.
episode, any future episodes that you'd like us to talk about. We really appreciate being a part of this magical community. And we want to talk about all of the things that magic has to offer.
Definitely. If you've got some sort of magic out there that you're hiding and you want to talk about it, email us, reach out to us on social media because we definitely want to talk about it too.
Yes.
Yes, please. Share your weird with us, please.
Please.
And on that note, we're going to sign off. Stay magical, everyone.
Stay magical. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Magical Aspirations. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Magical Aspirations to keep up with the latest and the greatest from Annalisa, Adreyauna, and Reverend Raven, and to join in on the Magical Aspirations conversations. Come check out our website, magicalaspirations.com, to find bonuses from our guests, our Magical Aspirations blog, and to reach out to our magical hosts with questions, comments, reviews, or ideas for future episodes. We are so grateful for each and every one of you listening. Thank you again, and as always, stay true to your magic.